to EUTV today. Today we are joined by the Principal, Professor Sir Timothy O'Shea, who is sadly leaving us after 15 years of service. So we decided to catch up with him, ask him a few questions about his time in office and see what his plans are for the future. So thank you for joining us, Professor.
Great pleasure.
So I think for a lot of our viewers there might be some confusion about what the Principal does, and in your own words, could you tell our viewers what your role has been over the last 15 years?
If you look at my job description, the most important thing in it is that I'm the Chief Accounting Officer. So I'm responsible for the reliable reporting of the about £924 million that the university got in income last year. I'm responsible for properly accounting for the almost 40,000 students. So I have to talk to the various agencies, the Scottish Government, who are one of our funders, British Government, another funder, Brussels, another funder, and account for the money, account for the students. And so that means it is an executive job, and I'm accountable to the governing body of the university, which is the University Court, and I have to tell them what's been happening, tell them what plans that senior staff would like to do, get approval for those plans. So, but basically I account for the university to the outside world.
Would it be fair to describe you then as a sort of CEO for the university?
Yes, quite like a CEO. It's different, of course, because the university is not a company. It doesn't make profits, doesn't have shareholders. So in those ways, and therefore there is, in my job, there is a large element of stewardship. So, for example, I'm accountable to the General Council, which is the body of all the alumni. And each year, I have to make a report to them about the university, and I have to receive their comments. So there's a sort of accountabilities in my job which a CEO wouldn't have. And obviously I'm accountable to the Senate. I'm the President of the Senate, and for the Senate. So I'm accountable to the University Court, because the senior members of the Court are my bosses.
Okay. I'm sure that clears it up for our viewers exactly what your role is.
Right.
But talking about your role and also how long you've been here, when you first joined the university way back in 2002, if we can cast our mind about that far, what was it you were hoping to achieve when you came to this role?
I was interested in access. I think that's one of the reasons the university, access and widening participation. I think it's one of the reasons I was chosen. I had previously been head of Berkeley, which is a part-time institution that does access in London. Before that, I'd been Pro-Vice Chancellor of the Open University. So access was part of the agenda. I was interested in the application of information technology. I'm a computer scientist. I'm a computer scientist who's applied his work to education. So I was interested to see what we could do there. And I was interested in how international the university could become. I'm a mongrel. I'm Irish, German, Polish, mostly educated in England. So I have a very international outlook, and I wanted to see how much more international the university could become.
Well, it's interesting you mention your internationalism, because upon the announcement of your retirement, you were greatly praised for bringing that to the university and access. I have a quote here for you from the Education Secretary and Deputy First Minister, John Swinney, very, very kind comments. Under Sir Tim's leadership, the University of Edinburgh has built on its reputation as one of the world's great universities and is widely regarded as a powerhouse of ideas and innovation across the breadth of academic behaviour, bringing distinction and talent to Scotland. And the stats speak for themselves. Apparently 42% of students are non-UK students, which is amazing. But I think for our viewers, they worry that Brexit, dare I say, will affect this. Moving forward, do you think Brexit will change the face of the university?
I don't think it will change the face. I think there's a risk it will slow the university down a bit. We have such a strong international position that even after Brexit, the number of EU students has continued to rise, the number of EU staff has continued to rise, and the amount of funding that we've been getting from Brussels, from the European Research Council, has continued to rise. Depending how Brexit works out, I think the university might be slowed down a bit. I don't think it will be damaged.
Fantastic. So when you say slow down, would that mean reduce emissions perhaps?
I think the rate of increase would slow down. I don't see an actual decline.
Interesting. So, with no decline in student numbers and them set to increase even more, I think we're at 34,000 students currently.
39,500.
That's an incredible number. And I know a lot of students are perhaps worried out there that with so many students it's hard to get resources to them. Recently, Vice Principal Professor Jonathan Zecchi and colleagues announced a £200 million budget for increasing facilities. But students wonder, is building facilities what we need? Students wonder if it's more staff, perhaps better counselling service provisions. What's your response to that?
Oh, well, certainly the level of staff has to keep pace with the student numbers. And with a large student population, that then means it's possible to pay for a really wide range of staff with very diverse skills, diverse academic skills, diverse professional skills. And so that puts us in a stronger position. So I would see the student-facing staff numbers increasing, just as we, at the same time as we invest in the student-facing physical facilities.
Would it be fair to say, though, with this increasing student population and increasing investment in university buildings, perhaps Edinburgh is being plunged into a new era of being a large building site, and perhaps issues with the locals might increase as we push perhaps the Edinburgh population out of the city centre?
I don't see that happening. I mean, we have an extremely close and positive relationship with the City Council. We consult with the councillors and the constituents in the wards where we're physically located. I think the vast majority of people in Edinburgh see a real benefit in the sort of cultural life the students bring, and good facilities up here in order to meet the needs of the students. New supermarkets, new restaurants, but these facilities, obviously new sports facilities, these facilities are obviously available to the population at large.
Would it be fair to say that some of these facilities are perhaps for the more abled? I believe people would use the word gentrification in the city centre. We'd look at Nicholson Street. 20 years ago it was quite a normal high street, and now it's full of coffee shops and high-end retailers. Do you think the university has some responsibility to bear on that front?
Well, I think all the urban environments in Britain are changing in different ways. My own sense is that the university's presence in the different locations is very beneficial and just adds to the facilities which are then available for everyone.
Okay, interesting. So you say you work closely then with the local council and also Holyrood, just down the road from us. But I think it's fair to say in your time you have also stood your ground against Holyrood. I'm referring to the Higher Education Governance Bill way back in 2016. And it was passed, but it attracted some criticism from yourself at the time. You were worried that it was changing the management of the universities and was going to affect the balance between representation and, of course, the powers of management. But why exactly did you oppose a bill that was perhaps enabled to give students and staff more say in the university's running?
Well, I think there's a misunderstanding there. If you look at the 1858 Act, under which the university had been governed, that had student representatives on the governing court as a right. It had staff representatives, also had alumni representatives, and the way the Act was being constructed, we were actually ending up with pressure to reduce in a couple of those categories. And we also had large and a really very dynamic Senate, and the legislation was pushing to reduce the size of the Senate. So, I think in the debates we have managed to ameliorate some of the less comfortable things, but I think it would be a mistake not to understand that the big change in university government, which was extremely positive and which brought the stakeholders in, happened more than 150 years ago, 160 years ago, to be exact. And that brought students to the governing body, students, staff elected rector, alumni to the governing body, and of course, staff.
Would you say, though, the rector is a fair enough role to represent students and staff? One person in the university court barely seems enough.
Well, the rector isn't the only person. There are 5 staff representatives, there are 2 student representatives. So it isn't just the rector. I mean, the rector obviously has a particular role, and a particularly powerful role, because they are the formal chair of the court, but they're not on their own.
Would it also be fair to say that perhaps the rector role is not as grand as some might say? We have the assessor role that also comes with the rector, and many rectors tend to come from outside the city and sort of visit every now and then. Is the rector still a valid role in this current age, or is it redundant?
I mean, in Edinburgh, the rector role is, I mean, in the last 15 years, it has never been the case that the assessor has had to act as a rector. It has always been, we've been incredibly lucky with the quality of our rectors who have attended diligently, and I can't remember a single court meeting where the rector themselves wasn't present.
Okay, so just moving forward, in the interest of time, we've got a busy day lined up.
Yeah.
There's also calls with this increased representation that's being brought in by the government's bill. Correct me if I'm wrong, it's by 2020 50% of the court or the Senate should be elected. Am I thinking that? Is that the provisions by 2020? Okay, my apologies. But with increased representation then of staff and student opinions in key decision-making roles in the university, is it fair for staff and students to have perhaps more say on budgeting, wages and resourcing in the university?
I think on strategic issues and overall governance, it's absolutely essential to have a wide range of stakeholders. When you get into the more specialised things, you do need people who've got professional expertise. The university has a turnover of almost $1 billion. It has assets of more than $2 billion. And in absolute staff numbers, 15,000, and full-time equivalents about 10,000. You do need people who have professional experience and can deal with those numbers and can work their way through it.
Okay, but with increasing amounts of suspicion perhaps about university accounts at the moment, I recall recently one of Bath's leading executives embroiled in a bit of a scandal regarding bonuses and wages. Is it time that staff and students get answers on this and are allowed perhaps more access to these specialised areas to confront these burgeoning wages and bonuses?
I think the key thing is for the governing bodies to take a firm grip, and I think the Edinburgh governing body has been exemplary. But it's for the governing body as a whole. And the reason we have lay members on governing bodies is to ensure that we have people with the appropriate professional expertise, and you can do things like benchmarking to ensure that things like salaries are in line.
So, in your opinion, it should be an in-house university issue to solve, not perhaps government intervention, which some have called for.
Yeah.
Interesting.
The university is an autonomous charity, and I think it has to stay there.
Because I'm right in thinking in your time you've really tried to defend the rights of universities
Yes.
in the eyes of government.
Yeah.
Also freedom of speech, which is a key issue on campuses these days. And I also believe, I have a quote from you, that you once felt comfortable taking such bonuses during a period of austerity. So you've obviously been an anti-government hero, I suppose, throughout. So do you think other universities should follow our lead, perhaps in our defence of free speech, and follow your lead in rejecting huge wage increases?
Well, I think each university is different. I think on the whole, British universities are well run and behave responsibly.
Okay. Is that true of all British universities, or would you say there's a big disparity between Scotland's universities and England's universities?
So, I mean, Scottish universities are different to English universities. We have the 4-year degree. We have, in the case of a university like Edinburgh, we have elected rectors. So there are differences. And these differences have grown up over long periods of time, over hundreds of years. I don't see any strong need to suggest that all British universities should be run in exactly the same way. I think our universities, one of the reasons they're successful is because they've evolved over time. That means they have to respect their own culture.
And with Scottish independence an issue that's looming in the background as always, would that perhaps help with this sort of keeping universities autonomous, perhaps a break between England and Scotland, or would you say the union is better for the university?
I don't think there is a simple dichotomy there at all. I think it's important for the universities to be very clear about their autonomy regardless of what political regime they find themselves in. And if you look at an issue like Scottish independence, which is an issue which divides the staff and students of the university in the same way as it divides the community, I think it's very important for the university as a university to remain strictly neutral.
Interesting. Is it maybe not fair of the university though to take a stand, seeing as it's such a key stakeholder in the capital city of Scotland? Should Edinburgh perhaps not stake its claim and put its flag firmly in the ground?
No, I don't think it should.
Okay.
I think we need to respect the diversity of opinion within the university. I think it would be very polarising and unhelpful. And that has been my line, and I've successfully got the university courts to adopt a position of public neutrality with regard to independence.
And speaking of sort of public neutrality and all that, the PREVENT programme is currently under criticism for stepping on the toes of universities and their freedom. What is your personal position on the PREVENT programme? Do you think it is a good idea from the government, or is it threatening the safety of our universities?
I gave evidence on this to the Joint House of Lords, House of Commons Committee on Human Rights. I think the way it's been enacted at the University of Edinburgh is appropriate. It's clearly, when there is legislation that relates to anything, but say in this case terrorism, the university clearly has to obey that. If you look at what's happened in the last 12 months here, there were 1,300 proposed external speaker events. Of these 1,300, 10 were reviewed. 7 went ahead exactly as planned. 2 went ahead with a senior university figure in the chair to keep track. And 1, the organisers got a bit confused and they didn't get it together to make it happen. So there hasn't. So it's added a bit of extra work, but it's perfectly natural.
Okay. Well, come back to focus on your sort of university career, which has of course been illustrious and 15 years now. What have been your personal highlights throughout these 15 years? Any memories you'll really cherish as you leave for new pastures?
I'm really pleased with the way the quad in the old college looks. When I arrived, it was a gravelly car park, and now it's a beautiful lawn surrounded by nice stone. And I really enjoy particularly coming into the old college early in the morning and looking at the quad. That's very pleasing. I'm delighted with the refurbishment of the McEwen Hall. That looks fabulous. Delighted with the refurbishment of St. Cecilia's. And listening to music in St. Cecilia's. All very, very big positive thing.
Fantastic. Would it be okay to ask, has there been any lowlights? Has there been any moments in your career here at Edinburgh that have made you reconsider your role or have really challenged you?
No.
You're ready for any challenge, I assume.
Yeah. Well, I've been doing this sort of work for quite a long time. I had been doing it for quite a long time before I came here.
Has Edinburgh presented you any particular challenges that in your previous career you've never sort of even dreamt of?
The funny thing to say is that Edinburgh, I was worried Edinburgh would, because it's so big and such a large senate. Actually, to be honest, it's a less challenging, a more collegiate environment than the University of London or the Open University.
Interesting. Okay. And do you think for students they've perhaps benefited from your time in office? Do you feel that students at this university are better off than they were 15 years ago?
Yes, they're in an institution that is more vibrant, that is more international. By consequence of being larger is we are able to offer a wider diversity of courses. We offer a lot of additional things. Sports and exercise has bloomed here. We really like the facilities with lots of opportunity for participation at every level. We have the languages for all scheme, which allows students to learn languages in addition to their regular course of study. The relationship with the fringe and the festivals is fabulous. Lots of students get an opportunity to engage with that. And I think on those dimensions things have got even better, and I'm pleased with that.
What is your response then to reports when, of course, the inevitable student satisfaction numbers come out, and Edinburgh is apparently below its benchmark that it set itself at 83%. That seems like a high number, but compared to a lot of other Russell Group universities, seems to rate quite low.
It is quite puzzling. I mean, if I was running an airline or a hotel chain, 83% satisfaction, or a bank, 83% satisfaction would be amazingly good. So one of the things that's important to understand is that if you look at the satisfaction scores of British universities, the spread is very small. You know, we are above 80%, or always are above 80%. Nobody's above 90%. You know, so it's a relatively small span. I have to be honest, I'm a little puzzled that we aren't higher. But you know, this is 83% is not a catastrophically low number.
What about for that 17% that are on the opposite side? For them, this might seem catastrophic. One can only imagine why they have a low satisfaction at their time at university. What would you say to them?
Well, I'm disappointed that anybody said that. I'm disappointed that a single student would say they were not satisfied. I mean, one has to look at other more objective measures, like, you know, do they pass their courses? Do they get good jobs? The answer in each of those two cases, yes, they do.
So, for the university, is it a case of, as long as people are sort of employed after university and research continues, student satisfaction maybe can take a back step?
No, it's important. The senior vice principal is a very dynamic team of assistant principals who are working on every dimension of it, and we're working hard on the physical estate, hard on finding ways of using information technology to improve the student learning experience. We introduced the lecture capture recently, which is something the students have wanted. Gone to 24/7 in library access. So we're listening to the students and taking actions like that.
And how do you find it working with the Students' Association? Have they been a valuable ally in your sort of mission to...
They've been absolutely great, fabulous. Work really well with them. And the Students' Association, they support a really vibrant set of societies, a massive group of societies, very many of which have an altruistic purpose, which I find totally admirable. And they also provide really good facilities, like the advice place for students. I think Edinburgh is blessed that we want already quite wonderful students associated.
Okay, that's lovely. I'm sure they'd be very happy to hear that over in the offices at
Well, they know I think
that. So now we're looking towards sort of the future and towards the end of the interview. I wonder, in your personal opinion, do you think the University of Edinburgh is in good stead for, let's say, the next 15 years?
I think it's in fabulous shape.
Yeah.
We have the resources to have a capital programme over the next 10 years. We are being able to spend about 150 million a year on real estate for the 10 years. We have a city deal, which will, in terms of data-driven innovation, big projects, really move us along. We are doing very well with new technology to support student learning, and our research reputation, our research income is going through the roof. So it's good to me.
Well, yes, if you're a doctor, I believe you're a report at the moment. So, have you offered Peter Matheson, the new professor, or the principal, should I say, any advice before you sort of hand over the keys or leave them under the doormat?
No, he's an experienced university head. I don't think he needs advice from me.
Fantastic. If there was anything you could sort of warn him about, is it a dodgy sandwich shop or something? Is there anything you could say to him that would just maybe make it quite easier?
I think the key thing in an institution as big and successful as Edinburgh is you need to trust the student leaders, you need to trust the senior staff. I think the basic assumption one should be going into things is that you're dealing with highly competent, very strategic people, and you should trust their instincts.
Fantastic. And I suppose I have to ask, have you got any plans for retirement? Will we be seeing you back in Edinburgh anytime soon?
Yes, I'll be an emeritus professor of digital education based in Morehouse, so I shall do some work on e-learning there. I'll be an honorary professor of informatics in informatics. My doctorate is in machine learning, and that's an area which has suddenly become very fashionable. So that'll be good. So I'll be at some academic events, and obviously I'll go to musical events. I'm very attached to the music of the university. I
trust at some point you'll put your feet up and enjoy retirement though.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, we'll do that.
Well, thank you for joining us today, Professor. Join us again soon on EUTV for more content like this. I've been Aaron Byers. Thank you for joining us today.